Good morning. Well, that's such an awkward thing to say to three people who are not having morning right now.
Good morning.
Hi, Ivana. Good morning. Or good evening. Mm. So, Ivana, we're gonna chat a bit just before some others join, but remind me, um, am I getting my geography wrong? Is Belarus the?
No, Bulgaria.
Okay, okay. Hopefully that
A
wasn't
bit
a.
western
Okay,
in Belarus.
got it. Okay. So I just insulted you in the first 90 seconds of you being on the call.
I don't take it personally, but
Okay, good. Nice. I'm going to grab a link to the meeting minutes and pop them in. Good morning, Dr. G. I just insulted Ivana in the first 64 seconds of her being on the call. So
that's insulting Belarusians because you say that saying that someone is Belarusian.
okay, sure. I insulted someone for sure. I'm not sure who I insulted. Nice. So I popped meeting minutes over in the chat. As you come in, yeah, please do record your attendance. We're gonna have today. We'll probably have a couple of first timers on the call, but some folks like Ivana actually, Ivana first time on the call, but Ivana's actually already presented on Meshery, which is fantastic. So Annie Rudd, good to see you. By the way, folks, as we introduce Mr. Jane here, Anirudh, you might hold the record for fastest time to submit a PR after joining the community. I'm not sure. I think Raghav is the last record holder there, but yours was it like 2 hours? Was it 90 minutes? I'm not sure. It was fast. It's fantastic. So we're just going to prep some of the meeting minutes for the next couple of minutes while some others jump on. Yeah. A PR is a PR, Anirudh. Yeah, no, it's good. Great. Okay. Ivana's here, so one of our topics is the NSM adapter enhancements. Gunjan's with us, very good. And let's see. Who's with us? Very good. Fonji's with us. Hey, Fonji, quick question for you. Are you with Andela now permanently? I don't know if you're in a place where you can talk or not, but
You're talking to me?
Fongang, Fonji on the call.
So
So Fonji, I don't know if you can talk or not, but Andela has been. I don't know if everyone's familiar, but okay, no, okay, maybe it's not worth talking about that. I just one of one of my colleagues is on the board. I recently joined Andela's board, and so anyway, great. We're 5 after. Let's get going. We've got. I'm going to make everyone feel uncomfortable and say we've got Ivana's on the call for the first time, and so is Anirudh. Did you guys want to just take a brief moment to introduce yourselves to the rest of the folks?
Yeah, I am Ivana, and I'm a contributor to NSM. Do you hear me?
Yep. It's
Yeah, and I I saw a few days ago the NSM measure NSM adapter, and he invited me to ask there the examples repo of NSM. For those who don't know, NSM has CNF test-bed examples, and the idea is that they will be automatically integrated with measure, and when someone adds new example, this will be part of the testing. So, yes.
yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, actually,
And
speaking of record setting, Ivana, actually, it's worth calling out that Ivana, I don't know that anyone will ever beat this, Ivana, because Ivana has the record for quickest time to make a meshery presentation. I mean, literally, like, just
5 minutes.
yeah, at KubeCon no less. So I don't know if so. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Well, I thought it was recorded. I guess I'm not.
I'm not sure, but it was right in front of my presentation, not the full long
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah. But
And you did the slides.
but still, it was pretty ridiculous. It's pretty impressive. So for those on the call, just as you get to know Ivana, so over at VMware has been Ivana. You're in the open source program. No, not the open source program office.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And yeah, you'd been. I think, near as I understand, you'd spent some time. Well, so I guess when Alex Ellis with OpenFaz was there, maybe did you spend some time on OpenFaz as well?
Yeah, I worked on OpenFast for around a year.
Okay.
And then I started working on network service mesh.
Congratulations to you. I just I've known Alex for a long time. The guy is the perpetual cheerleader for OpenFaz. It's impressive. Anyway, and so yeah, Ivana holds the record for fastest time to present meshery at school. So, Anirudh, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Anirudh, and this is my second year. I'm trying to attempt GSOC, and this time I'm trying to explore projects related to CNCF. As it's a very big project, like CNCF is a very big foundation. So I'm like looking for good projects related to Kubernetes and container orchestration, just to learn more about system design and cloud infrastructure.
Totally. So it makes
So
perfect sense that
yeah,
Anirudh found his way here, because this is the project to be. So other than network service mesh.
yeah. It's taking me quite some time to actually understand what the project is about. Like I just sent you a message
Yeah.
regarding what service mesh.
We if you would actually enter it would I know it would benefit everyone on the call. Maybe if you take some of those questions, pop them into the meeting minutes, and let's see if we can't talk aloud about them, because like every other person that of the other 550 people that are on this Slack and have come onto this call, that they've all very much so. Most people are new to cloud native. They're new to containers, new to container orchestration, new to distributed systems, all these things. And meshery as an area of focus is sort of predicated upon all of that technology being in the environment, and rides on top of essentially all of it. And so if you can, for those that have been successful in sticking around and spending some time here, they've greatly benefited from starting at the top, if you will, and going down, because in focusing on service meshes, they then inherently come to understand all the rest. So
Should I post that on hashtag Meshri, the same message which I sent you?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get it done in a minute.
Okay. Okay, very good. Nice. And Girish, I don't know if you want to. I kind of hogged the host there for a minute. I don't know if you want to take maybe share the meeting minutes or.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, fortunate that the conversation has been going well, so I didn't want to interrupt. So that's the part. So yeah, I didn't want to jump in. So I've already been messaging on the side. It's very nice to actually have all these new people join, Ivana, Anirudh. Thanks a lot for joining. And we have our regulars like Anand and Gunjan, and Fonji, and Jesus is actually becoming another a regular attendee for this call, which is great. I'm really happy to have all you guys here. Other than that, I'm pretty sure Lee has some announcements which he'll probably get to. He did talk about a few of things here and there, but one of the new or interesting things that happened in the last week is that Ashiko, he's not here in this call. He's because of his time zone. He actually took this initiative with Ganjan, and I think I forgot the other person's name. So it's actually this trio who took the initiative on creating a Helm chart for Meshri. And now, since Ashiko was actually much more experienced in that, he kind of nailed it down, and he created a PR last week, and that PR has landed. So we have an official Helm chart, for Meshri, and I think two of the adapters. I don't think it's completed for all of the adapters. I think he had completed it for Istio and Linkerd. So, but that by itself has been a long time coming thing. And yes, absolutely, this is a big thing this week, which I'm very much excited about. And I see probably Lee has actually added this year. So we had a person, his name is Dheeraj. He was from Citrix. So he had contributed the CPX adapter, and he had been working on that, and he ran into a lot of challenges, and we helped him get past all that. So now it looks like that adapter is actually eventually making its way to becoming a stable adapter, in the Meshway ecosystem. So that's phenomenal. Now the third topic, of course, so this is mainly for Ivana, since you're here, which is fantastic, is the NSM adapter enhancements. But before we delve deep into that topic, because I'm pretty sure there'll be some discussions around it. I just wanted to highlight the issues that were open and closed last week. So last week was a pretty busy week. The team has been doing a wonderful job, of working on issues and crunching and closing them. I'm pretty sure there are many more folks who were not able to join because of some festivities in India. I think festivities and travel, and some holidays in India. Because otherwise there would be more students from India who would be joining, but the good thing is they definitely worked through the week, because many of the issues that were closed were actually closed by them. So definitely a great thing. The interesting thing is Shubham actually messaged me earlier that he's not going to make the call, but it's interesting to see him here today. So which is very interesting. All right. So if we accidentally missed any issues, please feel free to actually add it to the list. And the other thing is, if there are any other topics you would like to talk about or bring it for discussion, feel free to actually add it to the list of topics so we can actually revisit it and spend some more time with it. So now I'm going to leave it off here, and let's talk about the NSM adapter enhancements we want to actually work on, which will probably be an interesting area for Ivana to actually chime in and help us. I can start off with some simple things One good thing is that I think this was something like which we already reached Ivana with. Now, NSM is actually the first adapter where we actually attempted a Helm install of the service mesh, the network service mesh, because all the other adapters like we have are not doing it using Helm, but we definitely have it in our roadmap to actually get back to it and make a Helm install work. So NSM adapter is definitely an interesting one for Meshery in general. Now, one of the things is that as part of our as part of the as part of the first initial NSM adapter development, we also tried to bring in the sample applications that were part of the NSM adapter repo. So I think one of the first tasks we had for Ivana was actually to help convert all the other sample applications which were kept separately, and bring it into the adapter as a set of sample applications so people can actually try them out from Measuring. So I think that was the first ask we had of Ivana. And Ivana, if you want to speak about it, please feel free to. Otherwise,
Yeah, I don't have any specific to say. I did some changes, but I was going to reach out how to test them, and I first need to go through some internal corporative tools so that I will be able to contribute to the project. So I'm still waiting in order to be able to open pull request.
Totally. And then, but actually, Ivana, on that, I don't know to what extent it helps to have kind of prior art, if you will, in the, but Vanille Naranja.
Yeah, I know he. I think it's trivial, but it's some bureaucratic things. He measures in the list of projects that we contribute to, and I just added the adapter so that I'll be able to open pull requests from my work computer.
Totally understood. I'm more having having established the open source program office at SolarWinds. I more than understand the the red tape that comes with. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I will ping on Slack for house test. Not necessary to discuss here, so we can go with the other things.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Any other, Lee, do you want to add anything to that NSM adapter enhancements before we actually jump into another topic or something?
Yeah, maybe I'll just share these, share my screen momentarily just to help while Ivana is waiting for the okay and some paperwork to finish. Yeah, and you'd said like, hey, actually, I think that one of the interesting things about the bringing in Helm as the deployment vehicle for NSM is that, well, one, it's nice that just to your point, Garish, that Isuko had just landed the Helm chart for Meshery, which is, I guess, is related, but Garish, remind me, today, have we provisioned, does Meshery provision anything with using Helm?
Yeah, it's the NSM adapter. That's the only thing we are provisioning with Helm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay. And then this would be bringing in hopefully all of the rest of the sample apps.
Correct.
From NSM. Okay. So it's nice then that the some example code, if you will, is already in the NSM adapter. And so Ivana.
Yeah, I mean, the NSM adapter repo has, I think, 3 or 4 sample applications. Now, those were made available as part of Helm, so we have them as part of Meshery, but not the rest. Because, when we reached out to the NSM team, we were told that there are more sample applications we can probably use, but those were not yet being converted to Helm because the Helm conversion happened right before the NSM Con, like a week before or something. So after that, we haven't got back to updating the NSM adapter with more sample applications. We don't know if more has been added to their Helm repo. If it is, then we just need to kind of figure it out and import it into the sample applications list.
Nice. Yeah, near as I recollect, Ivana, do you recall? Actually, I guess maybe the appropriate thing to do is since we sort of jumped right into that particular topic, do we, Ivana? It was right around that time, like Rish said, that those sample apps there were Helm charts coming forth, of what we had described in the issue. I think we'd gotten fairly specific about particular areas in the NSM adapter where code modifications might be best made. And I suspect you've probably not, Ivana, you've probably not had much time to actually give it a go or give it a look. Have you gotten a chance to just run Meshry locally, Ivana?
No, I didn't run. I just followed. I just did changes in the adapter, and I didn't run and test it.
Okay, very good. That makes a ton of sense. I'm trying to find that issue to bring it back to life. Oh no. It didn't. Yeah, it's the stale bot that put the won't fix. Okay, so we'll have to.
And it needs a bit little change in logic, because currently how the deployments are run, they are specifically listed. So it needs some changes. So I'm trying to update the routing so that it will follow similar logic, not to make an exception for those examples.
Oh, makes sense. Makes sense, so that they're not explicitly named, so it's a little less fragile.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Fantastic. Well, then hey, let me just give a couple of quick updates, and that's just to say that Rahul, well, Amrata has joined in Slack. I think last night. So she's we're fortunate to have her. She's going to go write up an article or two about Meshry, and so that's great. So if you see her in Slack, say hi. Rahul has also joined this week. He is asking us to help him organize a Kubernetes community days in El Salvador, and also to come and speak. And then there'll be a co-located event as well. And so part of his goal there is to help bring, he's pushing an initiative to bring actually 3,000 something cellular base stations to El Salvador to help make sure that, to help get people connected to the internet. He also wants to help get open source going in El Salvador. And so Jesus is on the call now, and that's part of Jesus's mission as well. And with his focus being, more within Mexico. And so hopefully Jesus will find a lot of synergies with Raul. Chris also just joined. Yeah, go ahead, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm hoping to meet Raul to talk with some in some Spanish.
Yeah. Nice. Also, Chris joined this week. Chris had helped organize the first Service Mesh Day before Service Mesh Day was donated to the CNCF and is now called Service Mesh Con. And so I think Chris I would expect that he's wanting to help us in the Service Mesh community in Layer5. He's probably looking to help run an event. We've been long being asked to create a Cloud Native Day, a Cloud Native Con in Austin. And so there's a couple of other Cloud Native ambassadors in Texas that are volunteering and asking to do that. And so we will see. Also, Chandres joined this week, so that's great. He's been really interested in contributing. And he just introduced himself. We've got Ivana. We've got an upcoming meetup at the Cloud Native Austin where Meshry will be presented, so that's good. Shubham was actually, I think, getting to the point where Shubham were you able to finish all of the workshop previously? And I suspect you might not be able to talk, so I'll look for your chat. But just I'm excited that we might finally do that with UEM Jaipur. So that's good. Also, there's a new news section on Layer5 IO. Forrester had included Layer5 and Meshery in a recent report. That report and the webinar, the presentation that was given on that, is in the community drive, the Meshery community drive. I believe it's under presentations. There's the webinar. And if you don't find the report, then just ping me, because I'll make sure you guys get it. But those are the general announcements, so fantastic. We can go back and either, I guess, since Dheeraj isn't here, the deal here is, so Dheeraj was able to get the Citrix CPX adapter into a beta state, and what we need to give it, and it's pretty much probably ready for advancing to stable. It's just that we need a few more people to beat it up. And so I'm going to include a link to so Anirudh and Ivana and Shubham and everyone else. I'm going to include a link here that will give you the right Meshery configuration to be able to run the Citrix CPX adapter. Because it's not included in the default Meshery deployment today, because it's not, that adapter hasn't graduated to stable. But as you guys are poking around, it would be great if other people are taking a look at it and trying to use it to see if you find any functional defects. And then, so we talked about NSM, fantastic. As we come down, I think Garish, there's probably a couple of different topics. So Nuno is going to present on Porter next week, both running Meshery as a Porter application. And hopefully everyone's kind of familiar with Porter, CNAB, and Docker app, as they're all somewhat related. We've talked about this a couple of different times on the call, but I'll put a link to cnab.io. Nuno has been helping us get Meshery into, so kind of similarly to how we got Meshery into a Helm chart, Meshery would be available as a Porter app and a Docker app. By the way, just with my Docker captain hat on, actually, I forget. So next week, Meshery will be presented to all of the Docker captains in a private forum. And so hopefully we'll see a couple of them join here. I know one of them, Luke Juggery, was looking to join. So sorry, so that's exciting, that's good. Going back to what I was saying, is that as Docker re-swivels, because I'm sure most of you know that Docker as a company had recently, about half of it had been acquired by Mirantis, and the other half continued. The other half, the sort of the Docker as you know it, will continue forth and have much of a developer-centric focus. Part of that focus will be on new use cases for Docker app, which I think are exciting. It may be that, so Anand's on the call, right? It may be that, yeah. Anand, today Meshery CTL wraps Docker Compose fairly prominently, but as enhancements come forth with Docker app, it may make sense to begin to also leverage Docker app. So there's your next assignment, man. I guess begin to get familiar with Docker app, because it's a bit more convenient. And we may find, Anand, that you might find some reprieve, because I know as as users go to download meshrectl, running the meshre containers requires two prerequisites on the local machine. One of them is Docker, and the other one is Docker Compose. If the user has Docker Desktop, that's just fine. That Docker Desktop includes both Docker and Docker Compose, kind of Docker Engine and Docker Compose. That isn't the case for those that are maybe are running on Linux and have just installed Docker and not necessarily the separate binary Docker Compose. And so Anand, I know you've had to go to additional lengths to do prerequisite checks for Docker Compose. Anyway, my point is Docker app, when it emerged about a year and a half ago, it was as a separate binary as well. And I haven't kept close tabs, but actually anyone can go try this right now. If you try to go use Docker app, I believe it's been incorporated into Docker Engine itself. So Anand, in a good way, potentially one less prerequisite to have to manage. So great. So all that's great. Of the second half of the call, we should either, Anirudh, we can talk about some of the questions that you had brought up, or if others have something to demo, or if others want to talk about some issues that they've closed or some open issues that they have questions on. Go ahead.
I have a question about the blog. Is there a plan for start writing blog posts in Azure?
How do I answer that any more enthusiastically than?
Okay.
Yeah.
But that should be in another meeting. It's not related with community or is it development meeting or in which meeting?
No, this is highly appropriate for this one as a community call. That so I think kind of two comments there that I don't think we made much noise about it, but one of our one of the community contributors, Rafi, he'd participate. He's still participating in the community. He's been more focused on the other project, the Service Mesh Landscape project, and significantly enhancing it. He's actually made a significant enhancement that hasn't been merged yet, hasn't been released, and Garish is helping him there. But anyway, he's been writing about his experiences in the community and working on the landscape. And so we've begun to publish those community authored posts here. And that's in part, I think, for Rada, as she writes something, she'll likely have it published in I'm not sure if she'll have it on opensource.com or she's got a couple of other venues to post on, so it may show up in a couple of places. But Jesus, yes, if you have, do you have particular topics or ideas that you're thinking might?
Yeah, I have the personal service mesh instead of the enterprise service mesh, the personal service mesh path.
Nice.
It's something that I want to write.
Very good. Nuno, who's presented on the call quite a bit, he's also so Jesus, I'm going to point out separately. I'll kind of point out a couple of resources for you to kind of help you get going in that regard.
Yeah.
Nuno has got a couple of blog posts drafted, and he just has the hardest of time, I think, finishing them off. So you'll see some stale ones in there as well.
Some resource for that. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, good question. before we go through Anirud's questions, anyone have other items to talk about? I'm going to talk about one only until the point that someone interrupts me, because it's kind of neat. There's sort of two areas where, again, layer 5 and Meshery specifically are being called out. So I know we've shown everyone this in the past, that initially when Service Mesh Interface was announced, that Meshery was a partner there. And so we've kind of appropriately updated that with the community logo. And so it's in good company here. Last week I gave an update that SMI is under review for being incorporated into the CNCF. And so as I chair the CNCF SIG network, that group, this SMI group that we participate in, brought SMI for review. And so if anyone's interested in that, in reviewing that either the recording or the presentation, I'm going to take a note. I'm going to go ahead and find those links and put them into the meeting minutes. So. But what other topics do we have?
Shubham actually did have a question about testing one of his PRs. But since he's not able to talk, I think we might have to push it for next week or something.
Then is Gunjan, are you on the call? Because I think you'd asked, you asked the question recently, and I overlooked it in the channel. But I think part of your question was that you were looking at some liquid in Jekyll and wanting to understand kind of I think how to iterate through a collection, which is a great question.
Sir, now I get the solution.
Oh, all right. You're too fast. Okay.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, as the hem chat for Mystery is ready, so should I add the Mystery hem chat in the Mystery hub? Hem hub.
Garish, any comment there?
We sure can, but I think it'll be better if we stabilize the chart and then go there.
Okay.
Because somebody else will have to approve it, but we haven't had the chance to completely test all the capabilities which Ashiko has actually added. So I think we will get to it, but that's a great suggestion. That's definitely we did have it in our future. I'm not, by future, it's not like a far future, it's like a very near future. So probably hopefully once we get Helm tested, the Meshery Helm charts tested well, and we have added all the existing adapters to it, then we can actually take it to Helm Hub.
Yeah, nice. That makes total sense. So the short answer is yes, we do want to take it there. But to Garish's point, we just need to run it through some diligence, and I guess finish off the last bit of it too. So Anirudh, actually, as you're going around, and just getting steeped in cloud native, and deploying Meshery in a couple of ways, you might want to give the new Helm chart a run.
Can I get a link to where the Helm chart is, or is it in the current binary?
Gunjan, can you hook him up? Yeah, totally. And then,
Sir,
yeah, go ahead.
yes, sir. Sir, have you say something?
Please.
Uh,
Oh, yeah, Gunjan, if you would, could you point Anirudh to both the functional specification for the Helm chart that's been written, and then where also point him to where it got merged in the main Meshery repo. It's under the installations folder.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. I'll send up a link in the chat in the chat box.
Very good. Nice. And then, Chaim, since you were here, seemed like there was an Octarine announcement this week.
Yes, we released two related open source projects. They're concerning risk associated with workload configuration in Kubernetes. So one is our framework for determining what is the level of risk of a Kubernetes workload configuration. And the other one is KubeScan, which is our tool to actually run in a Kubernetes cluster and scan the workloads and get a report on the risk level. So far, we got a lot of interest, and hopefully, we'll start having people contribute more of what they see as risk factors in Kubernetes workload configuration.
Totally. I'm sure you did get quite a bit of interest. Maybe can you, if it's of interest to me, maybe could you say more about your guys' approach to the KCCSS? Just, you know, and you know where the rules and the scores are being sourced from, and how closely they relate to CVSS.
So the inspiration around the scoring method and the scoring formula and the factors into the scoring formula are taken from CVSS. So we're looking at the impact of the possible impact of each configuration and the exploitability, which means how complex it is and how easy it is to be exploited. That is very similar to CVSS. As far as where we're taking, we started with the CIS benchmark, which is the probably most complete set of best practices for securing Kubernetes. And we went and extended that with some of the things we saw in Kubernetes deployments. We work with some external advisors that gave us their input. And what we learned is that really everyone who works professionally in Kubernetes has some ideas around what could introduce risks. Obviously, there are a few things that are obvious, like privileged containers or privileged pods introduce some risk, sharing the host network, things like that. But beyond that, there are things that are less obvious relating to host mounts and mounting of service account tokens and RBAC privileges. So we really hope that more practitioners around the world will contribute their own risk factors into that repository.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense. Of some of those risk factors, are any of those based off of the CIS benchmark for Kubernetes?
Yeah, so many of them do. CIS itself is also releasing a new version, so they're now I think at 1.4, and they're releasing 1.5 for CIS benchmark for Kubernetes. Right, this one. And if you go to chapter 5 of the benchmark, it all has to do with workload configuration. So yes, a lot of the things that we are looking at are taken from that benchmark.
Nice, awesome. And then chapter 5 workload. Okay. Oh, very good. Okay. I'd spent some time helping get out the Docker CIS benchmark for the 1.0 a few years ago, and so they're worthwhile. I mean, those are good practices.
Yeah, for sure. Some of them are hard to follow in full because you actually sometimes do need privileges and permissions for your workload. But in general, it's a good set of guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes just the security is just so prohibitive. You can't get anything done.
Yes.
Nice. Very good.
It's about managing risk, not eliminating risk.
Yeah. Well, so Anirudh had a couple of questions about just grokking service meshes, I think, in general. And we're fortunate that Chaim is here, both as he's the CTO for Octarine, and with Garish and with Ivana and others here that are well steeped in service mesh. Anirudh, do you want to sort of explore part of the questions that you had? If no one else has anything, I think Anirudh's questions are well placed and would probably benefit the rest of us.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, what's the use of service mesh? Because currently my projects, I simply created a post, like simply I created a service Postgres. I created a backend, and I simply used to connect it using APIs or some route port forwarding and all those stuff. So I was just wondering, where does service mesh come into play?
It's a question everyone has. And actually, since I get sick of listening to my own voice in this call, actually, does anyone else want to give it take a crack at that answer?
So I'm not sure what is the exact architecture here, but there is a certain level of complexity, which is kind of an entry point, I think, for a service mesh. So if all you have is a database and a service fronting that database, perhaps service mesh is a little early. The way I see it, it's more when you have some internal traffic inside your cluster that is either HTTP or gRPC based in addition to any TCP traffic. And then service mesh is very useful both for traffic shaping, for monitoring and collecting telemetry, eventually for security as well. But again, if you have one or two microservices fronting a database, I'm not sure you'll get a lot of value from a service mesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, I just give an example for a database, and so my main issue, like generally for any service you create, you could just simply create a route, or there's always a route and an expose port which you can access to communicate with the service. So for example, if you have Kubernetes, we have in cluster IP that you can use to communicate within the cluster. So
Yeah.
even if I have like around 10-20 different pieces of services, that I could simply communicate between them using their specific IP addresses that are given through the DNS, the
Yeah, totally.
DNS that actually assigns the names. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add some flavor to what Chaim had said, and that is in part, I think what Chaim was saying is that service meshes are quite sophisticated, and the different ones offer up different functionality. But in part, what he was saying is like, hey, the more sophisticated your environment is, and the more needs that you have, the more services you have, the more complex your environment, the more value that you'll derive out of the level of the out of the capabilities of a mesh, because there are other tools present today that can get you from point A to B, or can that you might not need all of the power of a service mesh initially. In the type of example that you were giving, and actually recognizing that you were giving that example purely just for illustrative purposes, that to speak to that a little more directly, if you have a front end, if you have a front end application and it relies on a back end database, that given that, I don't know that people would always refer to that as a distributed system, but irrespective of that term, if you've got a network connection between two components of your application, the network is fallible. It could break at any point. Your database could be rescheduled and moved around to different nodes, or different, somewhere else. To your point about like IP addresses, or so service discovery is necessary. You get some service discovery out of any container orchestrator, and so while you might not have your front end app hitting your database by a named IP address, it might be using DNS. It might be using just the host name of that container. And so even though the container moves around, your front end application is able to track where it's going, because it's just calling it by name. And when it does that lookup, it does the DNS lookup, and Kubernetes is running its own managed DNS. And so when Kubernetes reschedules that database to a different node, it updates its own DNS and tells your front end app to go. So a lot of that is kind of taken care of, but what isn't necessarily taken care of are any number of other considerations, and that's that maybe the database is performing slowly, or maybe it was being moved right when you were trying to call it. And so you might need to retry. You might want to have your front end retry that connection to the database when it got moved. Or maybe when it's running slowly, you want to, again, either retry or back off and wait for a while, or send your client, your user, a notification that says, that gives them a better experience, telling them that we're processing your request. And the service mesh, or almost all, not all of them, but most of the service meshes are capable of facilitating those automatic retries, the backing off and retrying again, the redirecting traffic, either permanently or temporarily, that gives people a lot more fine-grained control over how requests, the resiliency around service requests between users calling any of your services. And so Chaim's point is like, hey, the more complex your environment, the more services you have, like the more dire your need for a service mesh, because you don't want to be coding all of that logic into your apps. You just want to focus on what your app is supposed to do, and you want to expect more intelligence out of your infrastructure. You want to just be able to rely on your infrastructure to do the right thing. And so service meshes are quite configurable with respect to that example that I was giving about like retrying the connection. Should you try 10 retries, or is that going to give you want it to be resilient, so you want it to retry at least once, but if you retry 10 times, is that appropriate or inappropriate for your user to wait that long? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, depends on. Anyway, there's a long list of functionality that some of the more capable meshes bring, and it has to do with enhanced observability and the telemetry around it. It has to do with being able to set and enforce policies based on the fact that, for example, that maybe Anirudh was signed into the app and actually he's called the database too many times, more times than he's allowed to within that hour. And so, he hits a rate limit, and you don't have to write that type of capability into your code any longer, so long as you're just telling the service mesh, hey, open up this cookie if you see Anirudh signed in, and he's called the backend more times than we've defined that he's allowed to, then block it. So it's that type of a thing that you can just configure your infrastructure to do.
So in brief, I guess it's more about fallbacks and metrics
And
as functionality.
Yep, those are two very extraordinarily brief examples of, yeah, you're right. You're tracking correctly. And the list goes on, I guess, in terms of identity and encryption, uh, accounting and visibility. Chaim will talk to you for a couple of hours about security and how you can run your infrastructure much more in a much more secure way, predicated upon having a service mesh in the environment. And so,
yeah, actually that's great. Like it cleared out most of my questions I had about using service meshes and why not simply use the current trend.
yeah, no, it's a good. In part, what Chaim was alluding to is just that was that like if you're deploying services into a Kubernetes environment, that you'll find that many of your commonplace concerns and maybe some of your lower level concerns are some of them are addressed, some of them are addressed good enough, but you might find later on that as you or your organization or your environment matures, in your knowledge and understanding of all of the ways in which you're exposed from a security perspective, or your environment has grown to many more containers and many more services than you really got time to lovingly care for, that you end up really needing additional tooling beyond the service discovery that you get from Kubernetes or beyond the network policy that's capable there. I think there's much like writing a piece of software, there's a lot of ways to run your infrastructure. And as a technology industry, there are moments and times where we converge on a particular technology and say, this is kind of the canonical way, the generally accepted practice in the industry for running these types of workloads. And that for this genre, for this era of how that's done, it sort of started with containers, moved into orchestration, and is now moving into service mesh land. And it takes people a while, both the operators of the infrastructure to just move forward. It takes the organizations a while to move forward. It takes some bureaucracy and red tape a while to get done, and sometimes. And it also takes developers, as they're accustomed to maybe being responsible for the resiliency of their app or the encryption and of traffic that their app is sending out, that it takes them a while to begin to trust that their infrastructure is smarter than it used to be, and to stop doing that. But it's absolutely my belief that service meshes will be as nearly as ubiquitous as Kubernetes is, because why not? You get all that for free. Why would you? It's the same value proposition, a very, very similar value proposition as to why it is that people are writing functions and running, using serverless. It's just that this value proposition of service meshes applies to not just short-lived event-driven functions, but the other 80% of the world's workloads, which are actually long-lived processes, always warm, services that are running. And so, yeah, I think that we'll find they'll be fairly ubiquitous. Wow, look at that. I can talk us right through the end of the call. Isn't that something?
Okay, so it was new for me, like hearing about service meshes, because last time I first started with Docker, then I heard about Kubernetes, then I jumped to Kubernetes, then now I just heard about service meshes, so it's pretty new to me. Like, I'll have a look. I'll read about a few docs and maybe look into a service mesh.
Totally. Yeah. And then I'll talk or ping Haim. He'll talk your ear off about service meshes as well. So really, any of the folks on the call, they're all digging in. It's a great question, Anirudh. Anyone have anything else before we sign off for the day? Garish, we're good? You miss anything?
I think we're good. Like, I don't have anything specific. It was a good call, very interesting discussions, and also educational for some people, I believe. So, a great way to end Friday probably for some people.
Hey guys, can you share my doubt?
Yeah, hey Raghav.
Haley. Sorry, I was late.
Shame on
No
you.
problem. You just have to start off with 10 push-ups, and then let's get back.
Yeah.
I was just messing with you. Yeah, so what's up?
Yeah, so let me share my screen.
So for everyone else, thank you for coming. If you can hang out, please do. But we totally understand if you need to jump out, because it is the top of the hour. So.
See you guys next week.
Yeah, so I was working through that performance settings page.
Yes, beautiful.
In the settings page, I did the front end part, and when I just do the run testing, it goes to the backend page. Here it is a front end part, the mesh setting performance page, and when I send the parameters, the concurrent request and the queries per second, it goes to the backend here, api.load test and preference. This is the backend here. So it is receiving the backend fine. I checked it by printing the things. Now when I receive the things in the mesh performance by the store, it pops up an error here. So Girish told me to basically load the data from the store here. This one.
Raghav, can you scroll further down? Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I see it there. So what you were interested in is actually not the load test itself, but the load test prefs. That's the object which is going to contain all the variables you're interested in.
Yeah.
So technically, the way you have to do it is, you will have. So you're submitting to the backend, but
Yes,
you shouldn't stop with that. So you have to submit to the backend. Now, when you get back a success from the back, you have to actually, call one of the action methods, which is actually in the store file.
yeah, I this one right here.
You wouldn't be invoking that, but can you come down? Can you further
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see the line number 166 onwards. Those are the
Yeah.
those are the action methods. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty
sure.
sure I created one for the load test prefs. Yeah, so line 190.
Yeah. Here. Yeah.
That's the one you need to invoke from your code, which is after. I mean, you can find this pattern in all the other components. Like for example, in the one you were looking at, the performance component or the settings
Yes.
page. So this pattern is followed in all the places where a call is made to the backend. Now, on success, we actually update your local store as well. So that's the pattern you'll be following.
Okay.
Now, without you updating the store, you will not see your changes reflect properly. So,
Fine.
but
So, like
yeah.
this, right? 1 second. I saw this. Here, basically, this is what you are referring to, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I mean, so you'll be doing something similar for your function, which is going to be like update latest pref,
Yeah.
or which I have. Yeah. So
Fine.
you'll be doing this exact identical thing for that. So what this will do is this will not just update the backend, but also update the store state so that they are in sync with one another.
Okay. And so basically, thing I'm having a doubt with is here in the load test pref and the load test here itself, there is this some static value that is given permanently. So when I leave it empty, leave it empty, doesn't it mean that the static value that I'm giving will be empty?
Yeah, you're right. No, you can actually put 30s there. The reason why it is empty there is that now if you actually go back to your browser and then load the page, you'll see something happen. Can you go back to your browser?
Uh, should I write 30s before?
No, I'll say leave it for now. Go back to your browser.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
So now, can you go to the network tab
Uh,
in the development?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Fine.
Now can you reload the page? Yeah, just reload the page. So now, can you search for sync? Yeah,
Here it is.
exactly. Now, can you go to the preview and expand the data there? So if you look there, you see the load test prefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is that this usually when it starts, it would usually return back this data, which is kind of getting stored in that JavaScript object.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is the reason why it's usually, I mean, it might not be a problem because it's probably coming from the backend. But if it is not, then probably what you're suggesting is right. And the reason saying that is, if at all it's not coming right, then you should probably fix it in the backend because when the page loads, this sync call fetches the current state of all the preferences in the backend and then brings it to the front end and synchronizes it into the store. Now from then on, you just work with your store in the UI because it's a single page application.
Fine. Fine. Makes sense.
Cool, dude. Yeah, let me know if you run into any more issues.
Sure.
Let's take it from there. Yeah. But yeah, this is great. I mean, one thing I would say is, don't hesitate to ask questions. What are you doing is right. This is great. So everybody, I think, if other people are on the call, they would have probably learned a lot from this. And also it's educating you, so this is fantastic. Also, it's also a good thing to, it's not bad to question something that's already there, right? Because if there is a better way to do something, I mean, it's definitely good to talk about it and take it forward. So this is great.
Fine. Thanks.
Awesome, dude. Anything else, guys, before we call it a day and jump right into our weekends? All right, then.
Nice.
See you guys next week.
Oh, very good. See you later, Greesh. Bye, guys. Bye, Ivana.
Yes. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Raghav.